All right, Corey. So, you want to race?
Always,
Oh,
I'm doing this interview from my truck.
oh
That's
man,
I
yeah.
stay ready.
Yes, you do. I actually, man, I got the biggest kick. I got just such a laugh when I saw you jump in and you're in your truck. So, and here you are, a race car driver. But, dude, yeah, that's
Luckily for
awesome.
you, I didn't have my helmet on.
Now that would have made some serious views, man. I'll tell you that. You and your helmet. Well, it's great to have you on, man. Where I'd really like to start is how you grew up. I know your grandfather was a race car driver. I know your dad was a race car driver. Was this, uh, was this something that's, I mean, maybe it's in your DNA. I don't know.
So I think a lot of people with legacy type heritage of whatever sport or business, you grow up not knowing anything different. So my grandfather was a six-time champion at a track in the Northeast in Connecticut called Danbury Race Arena. Then my dad started his career there, moved south to NASCAR, and had a lot of success in the mid '90s. When I was four till probably 8, 9, 10 years old. So naturally, at Thanksgiving dinner, you're talking about racing. You're going to the racetrack. When Grandpa calls you, he's asking if you won the race. Whatever. Still to this day, I'm 32 years old, and he still calls me every Monday to check in. Uh, Pepe is what we call him. So there's there was certainly some pressure growing up, and we could dig into that a little bit. But I think no matter if you were forced to do it, because naturally you're not going to go buy a go kart, you're not going to go figure out when the next progression or steps of your career is. You're going to let your parents or your dad, who's done that before you and knows how to do it, do that for you. And um, naturally started racing at 4, got some go karts, started learning the ins and outs of it, but there was a couple distinct moments, some watershed moments where I had to choose it for myself, and that was probably one of them was 15, another one was 17, and I had so many opportunities, when I was down and out with not many opportunities to stop and to quit, and that's kind of where stacking pennies comes from in a long about way, but yeah, I think there wasn't very many options for me to do outside of racing because it was always a dream. Um, and sure enough, every Sunday during the year, I'm legitimately living my dream.
It's interesting you talk about the go kart racing. So I had this client of mine. He was a client of mine for like 18 months, like a year and a half, and he had two boys, and his oldest son did go kart racing, and so he gave me like all the ins and outs around how competitive it is. Like it's insanely competitive. Like he was talking about how a lot of these parents were actually flying people over from overseas who were like these high end mechanics for their kids go kart like success. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, no, man, like these people are serious. Like they are very serious when it comes to this stuff. But was that as your experience as well? It just seems crazy competitive.
Mine was the exact opposite. So, people think that growing up, from the time you're 5 years old in a go kart, you have to win every race. You have to be the one that qualifies on the pole because they think Rick Hendrick or Roger Penske or Ferrari is going to be in the grandstands watching their kid and sign them up to a lifelong contract, getting paid millions of dollars. Where my dad, have luckily enough, grew up learning it from my grandfather, but realized real quickly that it didn't matter how many races you won, or the accolades you garnered over the course of your young career. It didn't matter until you made it to the top. So all the way up till I was 16 years old, it didn't matter if I qualified on the pole, second, fifth. Every race, my dad made me start in the back. From the time I was 6 to the time I was probably about 14 is when like he actually allowed me to starting the race where I qualified. Because one, it pissed me off. Two, it taught me how to pass, right? And it taught you how to set guys up. It taught you how to be resilient, to never give up, to never uh, kind of lay down or feel like the race is over, because you're always pressing, you're always charging. So I look back at that, and I was so sour uh, when I was a kid because I didn't understand it. I was like, Dad, what? Like, I just qualified third. You're making me start 28th? And my dad would always say, it doesn't matter if you finish 12th. If you learn how to pass somebody, if you learn how to open your corner up, if you learn some different techniques from somebody that you don't race around very often, then you're going to be more ahead doing that than you would be leading every lap and getting the trophy, because the trophy right now, sitting here at 32, didn't make me any better or worse um, than had I would just started where in the back and figured out some discipline, figured out um, some techniques. So that's probably the furthest opposite of your buddy, right? Because you there's this misconception of you want your kids to be on the cutting edge, you want the kids to be on the the successful side. But there was a guest on your show a couple weeks ago just talking about how important it is to teach your kids failure,
Oh yeah.
and to figure out how to learn from it. Right? You're not a loser if you fail. Right? You're a loser if you don't learn from how you fail. So my career has legitimately been a career of failure strung along, failing at different things at different times and learning and getting better from the bottom up and strengthening the weaknesses. So I'm if that wasn't the case of me growing up and how Dad kind of raised me to not have as many accolades on the spreadsheet or as many trophies in the trophy case, I certainly wouldn't get paid to be driving on a Sunday afternoon on live television had I went the other way of chasing the trophies and not chasing. You always be chasing the better mechanic, the better cart, the better car, the nicer trailer. But when you're just internally trying to figure out what your weaknesses are and continue to hone that, that's really and truly what I think the difference of a professional is to, it separates the good ones from the great ones too, of being able to realize what your weaknesses are instead of put those off to the side, bring those to the forefront and really hone in on them and bring the humility side in and try to work on it and get better.
You know what's so cool about your dad, and I'm sure you probably already know this, is that, I think if you have this generational, thing that's really, really important, so his dad was a racer, he was a racer, now his son, is that you want success, right? And a lot of people want that success so bad that they're willing to bypass, some of the hardships and some of the lessons and all that. And the fact that he always put you in the back so you could learn these things, that's a true testament to him being okay with you being like, hey, you're going to mess up. You're going to fail. You're not going to win races from time to time, but this is going to teach you way more valuable lessons. This is not the easy street.
Well, and
Looking, go ahead.
I don't think Dad cared so much, even if I made it as a professional racer. Right? He wasn't fixated on that. It has, not coincidentally, because there's a lot of hard work by a lot of people to get me to this level, but that wasn't the outcome, or that wasn't what the intention was. The intention was to try to teach me life lessons of treating people well, to go out and as a 12-year-old kid, talk to people, talk to adults that own businesses to try to ask for sponsorship money, right? To form relationships with your high school buddies, to help them have you work on the car at the shop till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, right? To like learn real life lessons that apply outside of just being solely honed in on trying to be a professional race car driver. Now, in in part of that, it's turned into, I caught the right brakes at the right time and had a lot of help to get what I'm doing to now. But that was just a byproduct of all the lessons learned and the hard work. And um, man, there's been so many cool moments in my career. Um, Now that I'm able to have the platform, whether it's social media or just quote unquote fame and finances too are a big thing of being loose with that and helping out and giving as much as the Lord calls my family to give. It's provided so many blessings that I really have to. It's not hard for me to keep it in perspective of how bizarre a life that I live is.
I'm so glad you bring up some of the charity work because this is something that's really important to you, and it's something that's really on your radar. You constantly give, you constantly promote these other charities, especially for kids. Where does that come from?
I mean, I think just being raised in a Christian household. I was raised in the Catholic Church, so I was probably 13. Did the confirmation, did the CCD, the whole thing, and mom took us out of the Catholic Church and saw the kind of the gap of having a true relationship with Jesus and a little bit of the works based feel that you can find yourself in with that Catholic faith. And so that was a big game changer for me. Got us plugged in with a non-denominational church. Went to several mission trips. One in Costa Rica, one in Jamaica, another one in Haiti, and you see for just seeing firsthand, what true need is in that third world country was certainly an eye opener, right? Raised how I was raised, you don't ever even. It's a different planet from what I was used to seeing. So um, there was always that kind of had my perspective. Always, I tried to adjust it regularly, but and then that kind of jump started a bit more when I got in the Cup Series, and there's obviously so many opportunities that people come to you with. But I got to meet Manny Ohome from Samaritan's Feet through a mutual connection, and after my first, I guess it'd be my me and my wife's first mission trip together. We went to Haiti, and I came back wondering why nobody had shoes. There's trash all over the ground. There's broken bottles. There's human waste. There's all this stuff and just dirt roads. And then you go to look, and it's like, well, where are you going to buy shoes if you had there's no shoe stores? Well, and if there were shoe stores, there's no money to buy shoes with it anyway. So I came back on fire and had a couple conversations simultaneously that led in a row to that introduction with Manny that with SamaritansFeet.org, and he puts shoes on the feet of million. They reached their 10 millionth pair of shoes donated this year. And I just, instead of figuring out how to do it myself, I just wanted to integrate my brand and resources and finances with Manny and his team because they did it. They're doing it bigger and better than I could ever imagine. So we signed up, my wife and I, to be Hope Givers in 2019, which is like a friendly fundraising competition with some other folks to see who can raise the most amount of money for Samaritan's Feet. I had this fast forward a couple weeks, trying to brainstorm some ideas to raise some money for those guys through our GoFundMe page. And I had this dream, super vivid dream of just this black, I was driving a 32 car at the time, this black 32 car, Samaritan's Feet logos on the side, their feet logos on the hood, and instantly woke up in in like a sweat of like, okay, that was weird because that wasn't just like a dream, that was like a vision of sorts. And I got up out of bed, I called my owner, I texted him first, said, hey man, you up? It was like 11 o'clock. And he thought I was asking for bail money. And he answered the phone. I said, hey man, I've been just started working with this charity, and they're doing a lot of great things all over the world. Would you be willing to not pay me for a month to put their logos on the car? And granted, what I got paid a month wasn't what it cost to go to one race, so he had to be invested in it too. So we figured it out. He agreed to do it, put their logos on the car, and we were kind of off to the races trying to figure out how to put some traction, pun intended, behind it. And we were at dinner, and my wife said, how about we do it? If somebody wants to give, whether it's $1 or $10,000, we'll write their name on the car in Sharpie. And I was like, that's a great idea, honey. So we put that out there, and donations started coming in: $5, $20, $100, $2, 50 cents. Right? Didn't matter. Next thing you know, there was 1,700 people over the course of a week span before this race that donated. Everybody from drivers I was racing against, Kevin Harvick and Dale Jr. and Chase Elliott and Bubba Wallace, and down to 6-year-olds who were given their allowance,
Oh my gosh.
and everybody in between. Right, so it got a bunch of traction on the race, got a bunch of traction on social media, and we raised over 130 grand from that initiative. And that was just really the first example for me of taking my 2 fish and 5 loaves, and offering it up, because I couldn't have ever dreamed of something along that line, but God had much bigger plans for that. So I've always kept tight with Manny. Did his annual gala about a month ago, so I've continued to pour into that, and they pour into me as well. So that's been a great relationship. Then we've got the Kickball Classic. It's a charity kickball tournament we've been putting on the last couple of years. We've raised over, we're probably up to about $500,000 over the course of the 3 years so far. So that's been so much freaking fun, man. It's been. I need to get you out. How's the
I would
kickball
love.
leg?
So you run that every October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I should be all healed up by then. I had surgery on my knee. Well, as we're recording this in December, even though this is releasing at the end of January, but hopefully by the time this releases, I'll be running again. So, but yeah, man, it's been weird. Like my knee was bleeding internally for about 12 weeks. It was really freaky, and then they had to go in and surgically clean a lot of stuff up, and they found out what was bleeding, and just I had ruptured what's called the synovial membrane. It was bleeding, so it's been uh, it's been a journey back and recovery. So hey, yes, by this October in 2024, man, count me in. I'd love to come out.
You'll be dialed in. Yeah, David Hoffman, who was on the show, who introduced you and I, his team came in with some ringers, bro, and they took the trophy for the first time.
Really?
The other 2 years, it was my squad, the Built Ballers. So I'm going back to the drawing board. I got to get some studs on my team if that team keeps getting more and more stacked. But that's been such a fun event to get the NASCAR community involved, and raising a lot of money for a lot of great causes.
Can I bring my 16-year-old out? We call him Quadzilla because his legs are so big that he's 185 pounds, but his, like, I swear, like 175 of those pounds are his legs. And he's been playing football forever, but the kid has got so much power. It's actually, it scares me, to be honest. Like, we'll wrestle every now and again, and before, man, like, I used to be able to take him, and unfortunately, as of now, he's passed me up. Like, he can, like, just absolutely decimate me now. So we should get him
Dang.
out there too.
Dude, that's my favorite thing to do right now. Granted, my kids are much smaller than Quadzilla. I got a 3.5 and a 1.5, and I've introduced to them what I call the finisher. That's our wrestling move. So
There you go.
we all rip our shirts off, and I pick them up and throw them on the bed. And every night when I get home, they both are taking their shirts off, running to the bedroom, wanting the finisher. So that's I wonder what the age is going to be where they're going to start throwing dad around and giving me back the finisher. So it sounds like 16 or 17 is the age bracket.
You know what's really crazy though, man, is you'll always remember. Well, you and your boys will remember the day that they put dad on their back. So, like, this actually happened to me. So Mason, like I said, he's 185 right now. He's the center on his football team and the long snapper, but like he's got so much muscle mass to him. But I'll never forget it. That the time that he actually put me down was about a year and a half ago. He was 135 pounds, and he and I were wrestling because I was a wrestler and he's a wrestler, and I will never ever forget this. So he gets on top of me, and we're wrestling around. I wrap my legs around him and I scoop up his arms to where, like, he can't do anything. It's like this jujitsu move, right? Where he's on top, but he can't move.
Mm-hmm.
And his friends were watching this. And I was like, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do now? And dude, this is what he did. So he scoots.
Slammed.
He did. he scoots his knees up. And at this point in time, I'm 40 pounds more than him. He scoots his knees up like kind of close to my hips. And I was like, no way. There's no way. And then suddenly he just, one leg goes up, the other leg goes up, and he scoops me up. And luckily, he was kind enough to his old man that he takes me over to this bean bag, right? This giant bean bag. But dude, with everything he had, he took me and went backwards and slam like onto this bean bag, and all of his friends like erupted. They were like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, I went down and I was like, holy crap, dude. I was like, I didn't see that one coming. And, but yeah, that was that, I'm telling you, man, the shirts come off. The boys are going to get to that point where they're just like picking you up and just tossing you around like nothing.
I know. Sooner rather than later, probably.
Probably. What do you guys call the move? What do you call that?
The finisher.
The finisher.
I'll take them up. I'll hold my baby like above my head, like on the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
Slam him onto the ground, and you can't get enough of it.
Oh, I know. Isn't it crazy? Like my little guy, my 7-year-old's like that. He wants me to like take him and chuck him in his bed every night. And like there are sometimes I'm like, dude, if I throw you any farther, you're gonna go through the wall. Like, and he's like higher, and I'm like, are you crazy, man? Like, mom's.
Dude, they love it. So I got to where I grab my 3.5-year-old by the ankles and I'll spin him around, like in his arms or like waving like a rag doll. I'll throw him up in the bed. My wife loses. She has to leave the room because she's so scared.
Oh yeah. I used to do that to the two older boys when my wife would be like, "Stop doing that," and the kids would be like, "Yeah!" They'd freak out. Man, they loved it. Yeah. Let me ask you this: deep in your faith, obviously this really incredible upbringing with your own dad. Looking back on your childhood, what is most meaningful and most on your mind and heart to pass on life lessons that your dad and you said you call your grandpa Pepe? Is that right?
Yeah, we're French Canadian, couple of generations removed. So Pepe is Dad's dad.
Okay. What are some life lessons from Pepe and your dad that you want to pass down to your young men?
Man, that's a long one, but I think for my grandfather, it would be to be never content with just good enough. Right, good enough is not good enough, and that's something, whether it's your finances, whether it's things you're doing, particularly like something you have a hands-on responsibility with, you can always get a little like 1% more. Like, you can always make it a little bit better. In terms of race car building, you could always make it a little bit lighter, a little bit lower, right? A little bit more left, a little nicer. You can always go a little faster, right? Is it 2 more feet into the corner? Is it a little bit more arc in your entry? Like, don't feel like what you're doing right now at this moment is 100% the best. So that would be probably what I will try to instill in my kids from my grandfather, what he's instilled in me. And then for my dad, my dad was a bit brash, like hard. I could, my personality could take it, or maybe that molded me into the personality where I can take it, with not much fluff. It's going to be done right. It's going to be done this way. And if you don't, you're going to get your ass chewed. I think there's probably some tweaks I'm going to make to that system. But there's a hard balance, right? Because you want to be stern. You want to not give them ways out if there's potential routes that they want to take for shortcuts. I'd probably have to think a little bit about, one specific thing for my dad, because I think just overall that's just how I perceive the world is through his lens. And a lot of the context for my life and career and all that has, kind of been built on the foundation of what they've had. So it's probably along the same lines of always pushing through, never giving up. Because, and this is generalizing anymore, but it seems like a younger generation is always being catered to. Let's figure out the easiest way to accomplish something. Let's figure out the easiest shot of dopamine. Let's figure out the quickest way to grab some food. Let's figure out the quickest way to make $1. And I don't think that's the right way. I don't think that's the way the Lord intended. So, yeah, that's a long-winded answer, but going maybe equity. That's something that keeps coming up in my life. Of you have your equity of time, you have your equity of I guess mental capacity, whether you're instilling it in your career, whether you're instilling it in your family. So being hyper aware of where your equity's going, and if it's in the good stuff or the bad stuff.
I agree with you, man. There's definitely like this easy way, out of everything, or easier way. And yeah, I mean, there's something there are lessons with grit, and resilience. And sounds like, I mean, even the example that, and I'm sure is one of many, that your dad putting you in the back. So it's like, hey, you're not gonna have the easy way. You're gonna have to learn how to pass. You're gonna have to learn how to do these things that are really important, that are gonna help you win races later, right?
Yeah, and it forces you to see something from a different angle, right? Whether you're seeing a race, you're approaching a race from a different angle. You approach a restart different when you're leading it than you do when you're 10th, right? You have to think about things different. You have to anticipate guys' moves, whether you're doing it professionally on a Sunday or you're doing it on a go-kart track with your buddies in the backyard. But that's the way it is in life too. You're trying to anticipate moves. You're trying to see things a little bit different than everybody else. You're trying to think a layer below or a layer above, depending on how you want to look at it, than what's just set out in front of you, because the answer is rarely ever black and white, right? There's always the gray area to live in. And the gray area in NASCAR is kind of a negative connotation with, kind of cheating, kind of not getting caught. But, it seems like in life, there is rarely any black and white. Now, the only black and whites in red is the word, right? And that's what that keeps you at least between the guardrails. But when it comes to relationships and the way your life goes, it is rarely ever written out in a black and white text to tell you what is right or wrong, or correct or incorrect, because it's all contextual. So yeah, those are the conversations I'm excited to have with Levi and Jensen, and our third. By the time we're releasing this, I'm sure we're going to have it public. So yeah, I'm excited to just talk through those relationships and as they get older.
That's cool, man. Are you guys going to find out what the third one is? By the way, congratulations, man.
Yeah, we're going to find out this Friday. We're both hoping for a girl. I got 2 boys now. Would love to add a little girl to the mix. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Good luck to you on that one, man. Like we have 4 boys, and there's very, very few people that I know that have 4 boys. And the only one we didn't find out was the first. I'm sorry. No, actually, I'm sorry. The second, we did not know if my second one was a boy or girl. So after that, what's that?
It's electric not finding out.
It is. It's definitely a different experience with the first one. We wanted to be prepared, and then when my 15-year-old, when Quadzilla was born, I'll never forget. Like, my wife was like, I could tell, like, she was like, oh, it's kind of open for a girl, but then like we found out we actually had a miscarriage, so we've actually had 5 boys, and my wife, like, I'll never forget being in the ultrasound for each one of them. They're like, it's a boy, and my wife would be like, you just see it. You know what I mean? Like, like you can just tell. But speaking of marriage, though, your wife, man, you guys, you just seem like you just are crazy about her, and you guys seem like you've got a very good, solid relationship. What do you attribute the connection that you have with her?
Just a lot of trial and error. Yeah, I think she'd be laughing if she was in the truck here with us, hearing you say that, right? Just I've learned so much as a person and as a husband and as a dad lately, um, because it you're not prepared for uh, the amount of attention, the amount of obligations that you're expected to do with this career. Uh, it's such a weird thing of fame, right? Like fame is such a fickle thing, but it's so unnatural to be recognized in public or to have, I guess, a abnormal amount of influence to people around you, or whether it be on social media. So I have had, seasons where it is easy to believe the newspaper clippings, right? To feel like to let the ego and pride get built up. And we've had a lot of hard conversations in that. And um, I thank God every day for my wife for being the one that sets me back, right? Instead of being the one that you know embraces the lifestyle of being quote unquote famous, and you know all the benefits that has to offer are very fleeting. And she doesn't ask for much, doesn't require much. um, so she doesn't chase after those things. Whereas I could see my life and my relationships going down a different path. I had to have somebody to check me in that regard, so our opposites do attract. And she is um, a rock of our family. And interesting enough, she wasn't a Christian when we first
Really?
started dating. Um, and it wasn't even like I pushed it on her so much. And she kind of saw how I was living and my relationships, and trying to do the right thing, and always seeking the Lord. And she kind of got bit by the bug and started like dabbling. She's a very analytical and a very like a C.S. Lewis case for Christ type of prove it to me type person. Very fact based. Why is this? Where I'm more of a try to be more like a childlike faith, but I'm more of a shoot, aim, fire um, type of guy. And she dug in herself, and the Lord started working on her, and we both got baptized together in New Smyrna Beach in 2018, right before we got married, a couple months before we got married. So that was really cool to see her just the joy that she has in life from our kids, but also just her salvation. And it's been such a cool journey that we both have been on individually, because we've grown a lot from the time we met each other 10 years ago till now. I've been married for 4 years and two kids, another third on the way. We have learned life together for almost a third of our life. So um, I'm super thankful for her. And it's a big sacrifice, right? I think I take it for granted how she moved down from New York City um, after we met, and she gave up her dreams and aspirations to allow me to go pursue mine. And I don't think that's taken into consideration enough, certainly not by me. And I need to do a better job of showing her that. But I don't think being a stay-at-home mom and riding around in the motorhome with the kids was on her list of goals that she wanted to aspire to. But I don't think she would change it for the world right now. But that transition and trying to get, I guess her selfish goals and put them behind mine certainly allowed me to be able to really go pursue this profession and do it well. And that's I wish I could show her more appreciation than I do. I'm not the best at that. Something I need to work on. But she's I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for
I
her.
hear you,
I
man.
have no
Maybe what
doubt.
you could do, like this could be like, and this is the coach in me kind of coming out, right? Well, it's like maybe a mental cue for you would be like after you do the finisher with the boys, you go over to her and be like, "Hey, I just want to share something with you." And here it might be something you might have saw her do that day, something she said, something she did, or whatever else. But like anytime I'm working with a client, I'm like, "Hey, if you need a reminder, do something that you want to do after you do something that you do every day." Right? Like go get
Mm,
your like when like the big one's like cup of coffee, right? When you go get your cup of coffee, like that's your cue to send your wife a text, right? Something that is just out of the ordinary, things like that. But yeah, you
yeah.
can. How hilarious would that be? Just like the finisher, and then go over and like dip her down, kiss her, be like, "I just want to tell you how much I appreciate blah blah blah." There you go. You might put it into
She
practice.
doesn't. She doesn't take too kindly whenever I say, "All right, honey, I did the kids finisher. Now it's time for your finisher too."
Right, right. Well, let me ask you this because I know you want to. We're going to talk a little bit about your podcast too, which is Stacking Pennies. But let me ask you this: if let's fast forward the tape 10 years from now. Okay, so your boys are now you got one that's a teenager, if you can believe that one, right? And you got an 11-year old, and then you got
Mm,
like a 9-ish year old. You and your wife are married for 14 years, and you're 10 years further along with your career. Tell me professionally and personally and family, what are you celebrating over the next 10 years that hasn't happened yet?
mm. Um, I think I want to do a better job of incorporating some just family traditions to make it a priority to do things around the holidays, whether it's Easter, Thanksgiving, or Christmas, that you look forward to. That I don't think we did a great job as a family growing up. It was just another day, with obviously understanding the reason for the holidays, but really um, making our unit really cohesive and things that we do to look forward to. So hopefully a decade from now, we have some really cool traditions in place around the holidays that potentially friends can be involved with as well. Um, I think professionally, I would probably be in the back end of my career. If I can make it that long, that'd be great. Um, I hope would be still on the top of my game. Hopefully, have a couple notches in the win belt and be contending for some championships would be what I'm trying to shoot for. Um, I think just still being a blessing to people around my heart and being open and being um, I think maybe maintain the perspective of it all comes from the Lord, it's all His, and I'm just a steward of it. Um, I don't want to lose that perspective. I don't want to lose, just the relationship with certainly my wife. I hope like that would be better. I don't know if it gets better. I guess I could ask you if it gets. It's probably just different, but I hope it gets better when you're out of the diaper phase and they're a little bit more self-sufficient. And they can, like fend for themselves as opposed to being calling for mama, 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 mama all the time.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now, and we're going to be in that for another, 4 or 5 years. So I think personally, I always say I should golf more, but I don't really want to do that. I want to spend time with my kids. I want to go ride mountain bikes with them. I want to go do things. If one of them takes a liking to golf, then we'll go golf. But I'm not going to carve out an afternoon a month to go to do that in solitude. So um, I don't know. I think certainly having goals in those elements, I need to write them out and be a bit more specific to make sure I hit them, and just keep myself surrounded with good people and good accountability partners. Whether it's financial accountability partners, whether it's spiritual accountability partners, is super, super important. I've got a great group of guys around me right now to continue to maintain those relationships and potentially find new ones um, and really just walk by faith and let the Lord guide the steps.
It's so cool. I mean, I'm I'm a few years ahead of you, and especially with how long we've been married and the age of my kids. I mean, my oldest, as this releases, my oldest is just gonna be a couple months away from 18, which is crazy. So 18, 16, 10, and 7. And one thing, one thing I can tell you is that the quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of the people that you surround yourself with. And you mentioned in their accountability, and you mentioned in their like-mindedness and their faith. And I mean, you're taking those actions. Like I wish more men did that earlier on in their life, because their life, I think, would look significantly different in their 40s, to be quite honest. And
Mm.
and I think it's great. I mean, you and I are cut from the same cloth. I mean, I'm not one of those guys. I'm like, hey, like if I had a choice between going golfing with my buddies or going to the firing range like I did with my 15-year-old last week, I'm gonna go pick that one all day long, right? Because it's all about those relationships. And I can tell you, man. I mean, like if you're in your kids' lives like you are, like some of the things that you've shared, people always, and I always warn people about this too. Like if anybody ever comes up to you and says, "Oh, just wait till they're teenagers, they won't want anything to do with you," this and that. Like I always tell people, just walk the other direction, because if you do the right things when they're, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, the teenage years are freaking phenomenal. Because yeah, you're right. I do remember the diaper stages. I remember all that, and I'm like, wow, this is tough. But now that I have two teenagers, man, I love having teenagers, because they're like young men. I mean, I go to the gym with them. I
Mm.
go to the gun range with them. Like we wrestle still. Like I can't do the finisher on them anymore. In fact, they finish me now. But other than that, like you're doing all these, everything that you mentioned. I just want to make sure that everybody heard the things that you mentioned are going to set you up for that thing that you want. So that's fantastic, man. Tell
Well, good. I just have to keep doing
That's right, man. Tell us about stacking pennies as we wrap up here, because I know that's your podcast and it's got some good stuff over there.
it. Yeah, so it actually started as a bit of a challenge. So when I first got into the Cup Series, my rookie year was with the worst team on the grid. Right, there was no worse team on the grid. There was no less funded team. There was no team with older parts. There was no team with less of a manufacturer alliance than we were where I was at. And I go from being the guy several stops along the way, but I went from the guy that was in ESPN, the next article, or in the magazine with Kyrie Irving when he was at Duke. I was in an episode as like the next NASCAR guy, right? So I was 18 years old, thought I had the world by the balls. Hit some speed bumps along the way, a lot of which were, my own doing, whether it was my own mouth or ego or pride or whatever. Or probably the Lord's provision in a way when I look back at it, like keeping me from something that would have got me not to the place I wanted to be when I got older. But fast forward, I get my chance in the Cup Series. In the first 5 or 6 weeks, it's apparent that we are dead last. I mean, if we beat 3 cars out of 40, like that was a win. And nobody pops champagne bottles when you run 37. So I went from idolizing these Cup drivers, wanting to do it, knowing it was my dream job, to within 2 months, hating going to work, like embarrassed, probably depressed, not excited, not validated, not confident, and just beat. And almost content to be as good as that, or just thinking that I was as good as I was going to be. And got recommend got referred a sports psychologist who now works for the Buffalo Bills, just to go talk to her. Her name was Desiree, and kind of laid all that. She didn't know much about NASCAR, and obviously it's a team. Super important to have a good team. You're really only and truly as fast as the horse you're going to be riding on every week. And I was riding a donkey in the Kentucky Derby. So she realized real quickly that I was getting zero external validation for any sort of work I was putting in, right? You're not going to get any sort of high five, good job, or even any extra pay raises because you're running the back. You don't get paid more for running last. So over the course of 5 or 6 sessions, she started asking me what are some things that I can control, just vague, not saying a cuss word on the radio, having a positive attitude, getting to the garage when it opens up and not getting there late, just like going to the shop for 2 days during the week, not speeding on pit road, like these in the moment, very insignificant and microscopic things, right? Where you would think a lot of them you just take it for granted and you just do it. Well, I became so disinterested and so kind of jaded about the direction of my career was headed. I didn't even care about doing the small things right. So we set out. We just called them pennies, because they're small. You walk over 100 of them and you think they're insignificant. So we would go in with the intention of, all right, let's stack 4 pennies this week. Let's not speed on pit road. Let's not lose any spots on restarts. Let's not say a cuss word on the radio. Let's show up to the garage when it opens. Okay, we got all these 4. Let's add another one. Let's out qualify your teammate. Okay, did that. Let's add another one, right? And all of a sudden, you've got a list of 10 pennies that you can go get every week. And now all of a sudden, you're excited to get back to the racetrack and go achieve your goals when nobody in the world would know of what those goals would not even notice, right? But you notice, you know whether you're hitting your marks or not. You know whether you're the first one in the garage or not. You know, right, if you're the guy walking to the shop with positive attitude, encouraging the guys that are working on your cars. Like, you know that. And just incorporating that mindset of let's do the small details right before, because the light at the end of the tunnel was getting with a better established team, getting a faster car. Then the bigger things we'll cross those bridges when we get there. But that single-handedly got me back excited to go and learn and develop and evolve, and started on a podcast with a buddy of mine in that same time frame, and started kind of talking about that on the podcast. The fans started really relating to it because it relates to everything, right? If you're waking up early and you're going to the gym rather than waking up late and eating a donut for breakfast, your life's going to look different, people we just started the hashtag just stacking pennies, right? Every week, P22, no damage, no speed on pit road, stacking pennies, right? And people start replying back, stacking pennies. Start making some merch, some hats, right? Starts getting a little bit of legs. People start leaning into it. NASCAR.com or NASCAR came to me and asked if I wanted to start my own podcast. Naturally called it Stacking Pennies. And it kind of took on a brand of its own. And that's really changed the trajectory of my life through that moniker of stacking pennies, doing the small details right when nobody's watching.
I love that, man. So many times we get really, really tripped up on trying to control the uncontrollables, but if we start to really notice that the levers that we can pull, even if in the moment they seem like they're small, but it's the things that we control, it's unbelievable. The other thing too that I think is really cool is that when you say these things out loud, and when you're hosting a podcast around this, it's that reminder every single time you record a podcast, or every single time you're even faced with something, you're like, hey, this is what I talk about every single week, and it's part of who I am, and it's part of now my inner dialogue of what now I look for, and actually probably even how you see the world now. And I know people can find that podcast on anywhere they download podcasts, correct?
Yeah, or NASCAR.com it lives, but yeah, just like the Dad Edge, when you're all caught up on Dad Edge episodes, go check out Stacking Pennies.
Definitely. We're going to have a link in the show notes for that. You guys definitely go check that out. I know you'll love it. Corey, this was awesome, man. I really appreciate talking to you, and appreciate your insights. I'm excited to see what this third, kid is going to be, girl or boy. So you'll have to let us know.
I feel pretty confident it's a girl, but I'll save this story until the next time. And also, we'll know by the time it's dropped, so we'll see. It's going to be a girl.
Yeah.
I feel pretty positive about that. It's going to be a big year for us, man. 2024, we got a lot of new people at our team, cool. A lot of great partners. We're going to win us a race and catch everybody sleeping.
It's awesome, man. We are, me and my audience, we're going to be.
Where do you live?
I live in St. Louis.
Are you gonna come out to Gateway when we're in town?
Yeah, man. Let's go.
Maybe we can get maybe we can get a group of some dad edgers. What do you have? What's the group? What are your groupies called?
Dad Edge Alliance.
Maybe we can do like a giveaway of like some Dad Edge Alliance VIP
Oh, dude,
experience.
now you're talking, man. I would love that. Do you know the date you're going to be here by chance?
No, not I'm not prepared. Not off the top
No,
of
that's
the
all
head,
right.
but
We'll figure it out.
if you give NASCAR Gateway a quick Google, and it'll
Yep.
tell you.
Yeah, we're just consider us there. Yeah, we'll just consider us there. We'll have a good time, man.
That'd be good fun. I'd love to have y'all. Merry Christmas, all the
Thank you,
things.
brother. Well, guys, you're not going to have to look far if you want to check out Corey's podcast. We'll have all of his links, his social media in the show notes. Go head on over to thedadedge.com/459 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/459. Corey, thanks for coming on, man. You're an absolute legend. And dude, I wish you all the best in 2024. Can't wait to shake your hand though at Gateway because I will be there.
I'd love to have you. See you then. Thanks, Larry.
All right, buddy. Talk soon.